How can socially conscious people like us? How can we fix our broken financial system that currently favors big banks and powerful corporations to a system that looks out for us average American citizens democratically without using divisive political action? This is the question we ask on the Crowd Effect podcast. I am your host, Paul Lovejoy, activist investment advisor at Stakeholder Enterprise. Now, since 2017, I have been practicing not to be offended or disrespected by anyone for any reason at any time. Now, this is a practice, and it's not to say that I don't ever feel offended or disrespected. I've just noticed it more often, and I do something about it. Now, I observe in our political realm that oftentimes conservatives feel disrespected by progressives, and progressives get offended by conservatives. And whenever you get offended or disrespected, there's this, for me, anyways, and also something I've observed is that there's this internal discomfort that happens inside, and you want to get rid of that discomfort. And so, what do? Well, you attack the offender or the person who is disrespected, and then it's just this cycle that never ends. Unless you become aware of this being offended and being disrespected. In the end, how does it help anybody to be offended or disrespected? In the end, we can't control what other people say or do. All we can control is how we react to what others say and do. Now, I know this is easier said than done, but I have noticed a significant difference in my own life when I do this. And this is a very helpful belief, not to be offended or disrespected, because in the past, whenever I get offended or disrespected, my mind now is at a place where I'm not able to come up with solutions. Instead, I'm feeling like I want to get back at somebody. How dare they say that to me? I become a victim, and there's anger involved, and nothing productive happens. I especially won't have any I'm not going to be able to teach the offender a lesson. I know that is something I used to believe. Well, if I shame this person or if I attack this person, they're going to learn their lesson. They're going to think twice about ever offending or disrespecting me. But that never happens. And I know when people have done that to me, when I have been an offender, someone has thought of as me as someone who's disrespected them or offended them. People have reacted to me towards that way, and I have never learned any lessons like that. Because in the end, we judge others by their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. So, and that's not just some me talking. That's psychology. There's a lot. There's a lot of evidence and data that supports this. And it's not just me talking. In the end, I find that by practicing not to be offended or disrespected, my mind is clear to come up with more solutions. And it's that also is evidence based. You're not when you're calmer and you're thinking, you're able to think more clearly. So just wanted to mention that all this political stuff, it certainly is in my face. I try and not I don't check Twitter. I'm not a big news person, but it still permeates everything. It's all over the place. This divisive nature, and a lot has to do with it is by feeling offended or disrespected. So, moving on to our news story. Yesterday or 2 days ago, the CEO of Chase Bank, Jamie Dimon, he sent out a letter saying that our country is going to feel the effects of this recent banking crisis for years to come, and that it's important that the bigger banks um, uh, regain the trust of the American public, and people have trust in banks in general, and to regain that trust. And there has been a huge redistribution of wealth from these regional banks to the big banks. He also said in the letter that he sees a recession coming on, and that big bank leadership, basically he's talking about himself, needs to work with our federal regulators to have regulations that will prevent this in the future. So my take on all of that is that yes, the effects will be felt for years. I agree, um, and it's because it's for good reason too, that Americans don't trust the banking institutions. Jamie Dimon, he became CEO of Chase starting January 1st, 2006. And under his leadership, Chase has committed 178 violations, totaling $35 billion in penalties and fines. Um, this has, and here are the top five primary offense types. At the top is toxic security abuses, then investor protection violations, followed by mortgage abuses, banking violations, and rounding out with anti money laundering deficiencies. And so uh, that's $35 billion, and has helped earn Chase the number two spot for um, the most penalized current parent companies in the United States. Just not just American companies; these are all multinational companies. Any companies, corporations that do business in the United States are included in this. And Chase, out of all of them, is number two. The number one is Bank of America, another bank. Big surprise. Of course, Americans don't trust banks. Uh, the banks are constantly abusing us. Um, this isn't me just saying it. This is a fact. $35 billion under his leadership in penalties and fines. Now, he's also done wonderful for Chase as a CEO. Last year, they had $128 billion in profit. Okay, so that makes their penalties and fines since his leadership nothing. Um, the regulations are cost of doing business, and uh, I can't say exactly. Again, I'm judging Jamie Dimon by his actions. I don't know his intentions, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, thinking he's doing the best he can. They've interviewed some of the worst criminals in history, and none of them really, except for the psychopaths. Um, but I know John Dillinger, he was a bank robber back in the 30s, maybe it was the 20s. Anyway, he was saying he didn't think of himself as a bad guy. He saw himself as a good guy. So I don't think Jamie Dimon sees himself as a bad guy at all. I think he sees himself as someone that's helping our banking, and I really think he does truly believe this. Um, and that's why I also think that he thinks it's a recession too, because when there's times of recessions, uh, typically the government looks towards our banking industry for guidance, and it's not a big stretch considering Jamie Dimon, before he was chairman and CEO. And he's not just CEO, but he's also chairman of the board at Chase. He was on the board at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. He knows how this stuff works. He knows the game, and he wants to be involved to again. I think it's not just. I think he wants to help. But in the end, the regulations clearly aren't working. If if he's consistently being fined under his leadership 178 times, he's committed violations, gotten caught, let's just say for violations, $35 billion. Um, Chase has only been fined since 2000, since the violation tracker has been doing this, 36 billion. So he's only hasn't been responsible. I like 1.1 billion dollars. He hasn't been responsible for. Um, so, yeah, he wants to be involved with the regulations naturally. He feels like it's a good thing, and in the end, it's not gonna it's not going to help. It's not going to solve our problems with our banking system. The only way we're going to solve any of our problems is if our banking system is democratic. It's not. There's this large concentration of wealth happening. um, Chase is the most powerful bank, or it has the most banking assets in the United States, and many people consider Chase the most powerful bank in the world. He has a nickname as the most powerful banker in the world. That's Jamie Dimon's nickname or moniker, whatever. Um, so so we have this situation here where there's this concentration of wealth. Four banks control half of all the banking assets in the United States, and it's not a democratic process. Now, I'm not proposing that we regulate them anymore and use our political process. There are ways we can be democratic without being political, and this is largely due to technology has changed everything. The internet has changed everything. Uh, we now have this ability to be democratic in our banking system through something called crowd lending. Crowd lending allows you, me, everyone to become the lenders. And instead of, like Chase, they'll, if there's a loan for, $20,000, well, they can loan the whole 20,000. With crowd lending, I could loan $25, and 799 other people can also loan $25, and together we can fund that $20,000 loan. And that's crowd lending. There's no concentration of wealth at that point. I could talk on and on about how crowd lending also doesn't create money, because that's how banks are the ones responsible for creating, you know upwards to 97% of all the money in this country is created through our banking system. They're able to create money based by giving loans based on the deposits of account holders. So the more account holders deposits, the larger the deposits are, the more that they can lend money. And every time they lend it, they're creating it. Crowd lending, there is no money creation, so that we won't have this systemic inflation problem. Um, so that's our news story for today. Moving on to our financial tip is, I talked about a little bit yesterday, automation, automating your budget. Today, you could automate being a crowd lender. There are platforms that will auto draft out of your bank account and automatically invest for you. You set the parameters, and they'll automatically invest for you. And then they'll automatically reinvest for you when you get your principal and interest being repaid to you. And this is a way where you don't have to think about it. It's set up, and it helps um, fuel our economy with this with us as the foundation, us American people, just uh, democratically, without a large concentration of wealth. So that's it for today. My name is Paul Lovejoy. I am a crowd investor, and I see you are one too. If you'd like to know how to reform our unjust financial system legally, ethically, and without divisive political action, go to stakeholderenterprise.com.